Ladies and gentlemen, did you know that Russia got the largest nuclear arsenal in the entire world? Now, if these high IQ people tell you that's not true, don't listen to a word they say. Russia has the largest nuclear arsenal in the entire world. See, there's a reason why Putin is not listening to somebody like Joe Biden because he really don't have to. And see, these folks over here are control freaks and they hate what they can't control. And Putin is not going to sit here and be the West lapdog. He won't do it. So, of course, there are fears of what Putin may do, including using nukes. And Putin already said nukes are not off the table. And I believe him. So, when Russia unveiled a previously secret detail of its nuclear weapon doctrine for the first time in 2020, it confirmed something the US war planners had long suspected. Moscow would be willing to use atomic arms to keep from losing a conventional war. Yeah, and you can best believe he doesn't have no problem using it in Ukraine. Since the Russian President Vladimir Putin invaded Ukraine last month, he has repeatedly raised the specter of nuclear war, invoking his country's atomic arsenal in an effort to deter the US and North Atlantic Treaty Organization from getting involved in the conflict. But as Mr. Putin's army has faced, you know how they do the news here, if you listen to them, uh, the Ukraine is just winning everything. If you listen to news over here, but you do know that Russia already got over 40% of that country. Not to mention, they got their main water source and the largest nuclear power plant in all of Europe. I mean, once you got the water, you pretty much got them under control. You really do. All right. So, of course, the West is worried and have concerns that are growing in Washington and allies that Putin would consider using so called tactical nuclear weapons to gain the upper hand on the battlefield. Such weapons, which generally have a less powerful warhead than a strategic nuclear weapon carried on an intercontinental ballistic missile, were part of a Cold War military thinking, though they never figured into the arms control agreement of the past between the US and Russia or the Soviet Union, which we know that's not what they are anymore. The move would aim at crushing Ukraine. It will, turn the tide of the war, signaling the current levels of Western support, including transfers of anti tank and anti defense systems, are intolerable, Russian and Western analysts say. The first use of an atomic weapon since the US. Remember Hiroshima and Nagasaki? Yeah, it was the good old USA that did that. At the end of World War II, would likely cause major damage and radioactive contamination to any Ukrainian city hit, and perhaps beyond, depending on wind and other factors. It would also confront Washington and Europe with a major security test. We don't know exactly where it is, the red line where Russian leadership considers using tactical nuclear weapons. And the Russian leadership knows, they know exactly what the end result will be. One thing, they would win the war. They would. They nuke that place or drop an atomic bomb down on the Ukraine, then they won this war. Okay. In the days before the invasion, Putin led an exercise of Russian strategic forces, launching some of the most cutting edge missiles, like the hypersonic. At the start of the invasion, he warned of consequences, the likes of which you have never seen in history, if the West intervene. And the West have been intervening. They've been sending money and all kinds of weapons over there. And I'm telling you, I know he's going to respond. And it's not like they're doing it under the table. They're putting it out in the news every single day what the West is doing, giving more military aid, giving more money. They just got it all out there for the world to see. All right. Days later, he stirred concern, ordering his military to ensure the special combat readiness of his nuclear forces. Yeah, because he was beefing up his nuclear war team over there in Russia. And I remember doing a story, and I did mention that. While those threats were an overt nod to nuclear warfare, they failed to define where exactly Russia's red lines are. Observers of Russia's nuclear policy said, giving Putin more latitude to escalate threats if he feels the need or even strike. The point of tactical nuclear strike to an end conventional conflict based on doctrine known as escalate to de escalate is to change the rules on the battlefield while shifting the burden of escalation onto your opponent. Putin could use a smaller warhead to protect what his conventional forces are doing, he said. The Ukrainians may be the target, but the real target politically would be the US and the West. At the height of Cold War tensions, the use of non strategic nuclear weapons was never a threat to the US directly. But since the fall of the USSR, American attempt to establish controls have been rebuffed by the Russians. According to a congressional report published earlier this year, Russia learned. Um, Hold on, let me just go down a little bit here. All right. They leaned heavily on the nuclear arms, including non strategic and tactical nuclear weapons in its military thinking, largely because of the decade. Uh, when the Soviet Union fell, for a little while, the armed forces, kind of withered. It was like a decay of the military over there. All right. So, since Mr. Putin's military modernization started in 2008, nuclear arms have remained a military centerpiece, giving Moscow some sense of parity with the US. At the same time, its store of tactical nuclear weapons has remained high, with between 1,000 to 2,000 warheads, whereas the US has just over 200, around 100. That's all the US got in warheads? Damn. Russia got 1,000 to 2,000. The US 200 to 100 warheads. Woo, US, you didn't keep up with the rest of the world. Despite active signal Russia has demurred at the idea of using nuclear weapons. Mr. Putin's spokesman told CNN that Moscow would use them only under, um, if they feel they're under threat, then they will use the nukes. We have a very responsible approach to the issue. We never escalate anything. While the US, on the other hand, has made it clear that it has no plans to cross any nuclear red lines in the Ukraine and even canceled a routine test launch of the Air Force Minuteman III missile to avoid escalating nuclear tensions with Russia. Washington has signaled the presence of its nuclear capable forces in Europe this month. Weeks before the Russian invasion, the US spent. So, what they did was they sent over bombers ahead of the invasion, and they sent over B 52 bombers. Mm-mm-mm. If anybody's going to use nukes, it is definitely these European and Western nations. It'll be you. You know, when it comes down to this world security, the world has been put in the hands of the wicked, and we can't trust anything that they do. It doesn't matter what side they're on. The bottom line is, look who got the nukes. You got the most wicked people in the history of the universe, and they got the nukes. Nobody should feel safe. Nobody should feel safe at all. But y'all, please tell me what you think. There is a growing fear that Russia will use an atomic bomb or some nukes over there in Ukraine. Tell me what you think in the comment section. Please leave your comment and subscribe. Don't forget to hit on the notification bell, and I'll see you on the next video. Peace, family.